Redding is a beautiful place. We have national parks in 3 different directions, 2 world-class lakes. This is a sportsman's paradise, but it's also full of wonderful people. We have business leaders, community leaders, faith-based leaders, all of them working towards a singular goal, and that's to make this a great place to live. I wanted to showcase these people, give their perception of the place that they call home. This is All Redding. I'm here with Josh Barker, the Ohio State football.
I was going to say a thing about you. I'm here with the great Joey Gartin.
There's actually a bunch of us.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of us. We're a small army. It's like, you ever see that movie, The Boys from Brazil?
The Boys from Brazil.
The Boys from Brazil. That's an old one, but we're the Joey
You're
Gartin.
Going back to the late 70s.
Yeah.
On that one, right?
So you've seen that movie?
Yeah.
Oh, very nice. Man.
I was probably supposed to say that, but yeah.
Oh, come on. This is not a PC podcast at all.
You didn't give me any paperwork. Tell me what I'm allowed to do on this. You and I get to talk together a lot, so
yeah, we do.
But I've never had it the roles kind of reversed. So,
well, we do your podcast once a month, and it's very focused. It's real estate. It's a real estate market update. To me, it's a longer version. We talk about. That's it, pretty much. Yeah. And the things that are affecting real estate, I mean, we might veer off a little bit like commercial real estate or maybe some regulation that may or may not come down.
Sure.
For the longest time that I can remember, all we've been really talking about is interest rates. It's been like the cloud.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's like the story.
But that said, this whole time I've watched you run a very successful business. When I work with a lot of real estate agents, primarily because of you. You introduced me to a lot of your friends across the United States.
Sure.
You're part of a lot of different groups and masterminds and things like that.
Yeah.
And I've seen a lot of them go through some highs and lows, and I've watched you steadily. I mean, you've had some like little ebbs and flows, but I just think about you and I having conversations about the market.
Yeah.
And you guys just continue to do well.
Keep trucking.
Yeah. And well, I think the thing, because you're actually a topic conversation probably more than you think, because I work with your friends. And so they're always like, how'd Josh handle that? And I have to I have this saying I say to him like, hey, that's a great question for Josh. like why are you asking? What do you think Josh thinks? So you're asking what Joey thinks Josh thinks. Why don't you have Josh's phone number?
Well, now you can say whatever you want.
He introduced us. You could just ask Josh, Like,
there you go.
Hey, Josh, what do you think Joey thinks? Like, that doesn't make much sense,
Well, if they ask me, I'd be like, I don't know. Well, what did Joey think that I thought?
Yeah. And so they're like, hey, how would he pivot? And the group that you've introduced me to, they are an incredible group of, I think, I don't know the whole, all those psychology tests, but I would say that they sit in that drivers. You know how there's drivers?
Sure.
And I can't remember, there's like drivers, controllers, nurturers. What's the other one? There's I can't remember either.
Just depends which person's book you want to start quoting the different personalities on it, right? Yeah.
But they're very driven people, very highly successful.
Yeah.
And they still look to you for sage advice, because I think you've run.
Well, that's nice to say. I think it's a two-way street, though. I mean, I'm asking questions of everybody all the time too. So, I think I probably ask 10 times more questions than I get asked, in terms of talking to people. So, but I mean, business is business. So it doesn't matter if you're running a large organization with hundreds of employees or small team like we kind of do in Redding, where we've got maybe 25, 30 people. It's business is business. It really isn't all that different.
Where did you, I know a little bit about your backstory. I mean, you left and went in the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
I don't remember the Marine Corps having a business college. And I know you've hinted to me some small stories that you had a man in your life, your uncle, who's a very successful businessman.
Sure.
And he still is, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And he owns like he's in manufacturing in the Bay Area.
Yes. Yeah. So you're thinking about my uncle Guy Allen, actually. And so when I was a kid, my parents got divorced when I was like 14 or 15 years old. And I was one of the lucky ones that had a lot of family, a lot of men in my family that came around me and made sure that I didn't go down a bad road, right? My uncle Guy was one of them that certainly did that for me. But he was the one that gave me a lot of exposure to what business looks like. They have a manufacturing company down in the Santa Clara area. And I watched him, you're not really an entrepreneur, in my opinion, unless you've made payroll for your employees for multiple months without you being able to take home a dime. And I've seen that with him multiple times years ago, and just stay the course. But he was a manufacturing company, made cutting tools. So, you have imagine buying a huge warehouse size building that you put all of these machines in, these CNC machines and regular manual grinding machines. And then you got to hire employees and, pay them to bring their skills to the company. And then you got to buy a bunch of raw material and negotiate all over the world for this raw material and bring it to the United States. And then, of course, turn it into a product that you can then distribute and then sell. And, so I got to see everything from sweeping the floors to higher executive decision making. And, I learned a lot, and I still do, actually. What it's helped me understand is just the risk that the average American business owner takes. They stake their time, their fortune, and their talent towards, creating something beautiful for the community. And so from, being a teenager, I think I fell in love with business.
I think when I think of America and what built America, maybe I see history a little bit different, but I see, to me, it's entrepreneurs. It's the small to medium business.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just the tax base. It's the idea that anybody can do it. It's that
Sure.
anybody can start a business.
Oh, yeah.
And I think when I've traveled the world too, I was in the Marine Corps, and I probably didn't appreciate it enough when I was traveling. But when I later read books and reflected upon what I saw, that's what was missing. There wasn't this ease of just like, oh, you have an idea?
Mm-hmm.
Well, why don't you take it to market?
Yeah.
That's not as prevalent outside the United States.
Yep.
There are some places that are exceptions. South Korea is really known for like a very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Even the rise of China, everybody thinks like, okay, well, China's communist. Well, they are, but they have a weird variation of it
Mm-hmm.
where there are business owners in China. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so they have this.
They allow you to be business owners.
Exactly. It's not quite.
Yeah.
But when you see the rise of even China, it was
Yeah.
when they started adopting this model of, instead of everybody just working the state factory or everybody just working the state farm,
Right.
people started to have their own businesses.
Yeah.
You're right. It's completely handcuffed compared to us.
Mm-hmm.
But it, to me, shows that spark of just how powerful it's like everybody having their own farm. Or their own,
human nature, I think, is to be ingenuitive, and to really create and to explore and to try new things. And so, if you're living in a suppressed state, like China, for example, I think they realized that if they were ever going to keep up or to try, and their goal would be to take over the whole world in terms of their positioning, you have to free up the human capital to do that. You got to allow them to create. I think they realize that, so they've taken their hands off of some of the previously installed restraints, and now they're a little bit more accommodating to capitalism.
Yeah.
Not in its own form. Because they're going to allow you to do what they want you to do, and there's some economic advantages and really some policy advantages to that, I suppose. Where we got to be careful on our side.
I was thinking we're going in opposite directions,
Mm-hmm.
or we're headed towards each other because they are coming out of a
That's probably a better way
pure
to say it,
communist movement to this pseudo, mostly communist with a little bit of entrepreneur, and we're coming from this entrepreneur, which we're seeing this huge movement with social. They're calling it socialism, but it's just a whatever. It's basically the group.
It's wonderful in theory.
It never worked in practice.
That's the challenge.
It's I think Venezuela is a good example of that. They have the highest GDP of any country in the Western Hemisphere, and yet the vast majority of people live in poverty.
Yeah.
So it's not like, oh, they don't have resources. They have tons of resources, not just oil, but metals, a bunch of different things. But it's as soon as that communist state took over. But there's always going to be that battle. When I think about some of the unrest or some of the stuff I see with young people. I think their assessment, I think that what triggers the complaint, I think they're right. I think that they're seeing a system that's flawed, a game that they feel like is rigged and they can't win.
Okay.
And I think in a small way, they are right. There are some seriously corrupt systems in place. I don't think they're seeing the big picture of like, no, you can still build a business here. You can still start something from scratch.
Yeah.
You still have incredible freedoms.
Yeah.
I agree with them that, hey, our system needs some tweaks. It needs some changes.
Sure.
But I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater and say what it needs is it needs to be tweaked back to when we allowed more entrepreneur, when the government wasn't so regulated.
Well, I think that a lot of that has to do with big business. I mean, the larger a company gets, typically the more they want regulation.
Yeah.
Because regulation then becomes the barrier of entry for their competitors who are trying to enter that market space.
Yep.
So, you're not going to see them complain too much about regulation until it becomes overly restraining for them. And that does make it hard on small business for sure. And some of the concepts out there with, like you were saying, with capitalism, moving to socialism, I think we're a long ways away from communism. But if you say socialism for a sec, I would encourage everybody that hasn't study Milton Friedman, an economist from, won the Nobel Peace Prize. But I think one of the things, I'll mess up the quote, but I think you said it really well, talking with a socialist and saying, wouldn't it be great if everybody, was able to have a good living and maybe have a servant or two to support them? It's like, that sounds good, but what about the servants? What does their story look like? Right?
Yeah.
So you have to think about, those unintended consequences when you're pursuing something that sounds so utopia, because human nature is kind of counterintuitive to that. We are designed as beings to create and to grow and to become the very best we can be. As humans, it's weird, but you think about a tree typically grows to be as tall and as big as it possibly can. It has no restraint. It just grows until it can't grow anymore. But human beings have this option of choice, and we can choose to stop growing anytime we want, which is unfortunate sometimes. But I think when we're thinking about growing people, I would say that young people today, I don't think they have that argument. I think they need to be heard, they need to be told a different story.
Yeah.
I think the story is that you can absolutely become anything that you want to become within the context of what you're capable of. I will never be the center for the Los Angeles Lakers. I don't have the talent or the height.
Not until I retire. I'll tell you that, buddy.
But within reason, I think there's just about anything that I could accomplish, and I think that's true for everybody else. You just have to decide what you want and then passionately go and pursue it. Along that line, I think kids need to understand that setting goals, I think it's one of the most unselfish things a person can do. Because when you think about it, when you set a goal, typically it means you're going to try to achieve something you haven't done before, which means you're probably going to have to be a different version of yourself to achieve it, which presumes that you'll have to grow a little bit to get there, right? Mm-hmm. And that pursuit of growth, you're going to improve yourself, which means that's going to benefit your spouse, it's going to benefit your children, it's going to benefit your extended family. It'll probably benefit your colleagues if you're working around people. So you just trying to become better actually raises the tide of the level of all boats around you, because they all get better in the process of watching you get better. Yeah. So I just think goal setting is a big part of what all of us need to encourage our young kids to do. I tell my kids the same thing. Like, what do you think, Dad? Should I try this? I'm like, swing for the fences every time. You can bet the farm when you don't have one. You know what I mean? And the worst that could happen is you land on a couch. So bet everything right now. When you don't have anything to lose, bet it all. That's a foolish man's idea to bet the farm when you have one. So do that kind of stuff when you're young, and I think for young people, it's like, hey, you got an idea? Go for it. Don't wait. Don't let somebody tell you can't do it. Who cares if you can't? You'll just learn anyway. Yeah. Get after it. So, I just think that message needs to get out to the kids more. Not to debate what you had mentioned about, how hard it is now. It's like, yeah, well, I'm glad I didn't have to travel from the East Coast to the West Coast in the 1800s. That would have sucked, So what I'm dealing with today is petty compared to what people before us have had to deal with.
Yeah, I think what I was referring to was the fact that a lot of people are set up for failure.
Interesting.
I think really intelligent people forget that not everybody's really intelligent. You know what I mean? When I hear, I won't even say his name because I'm no longer happy with him, but he's a very intelligent guy on the internet, and I used to listen to him. And the problem is, at some point, he started to, in my opinion, go off the rails. And I realized it's because he's too smart to be giving advice to people that, you know what I mean? It's like Shaquille O'Neal telling me how to play basketball.
Yeah,
he's like, just grab it and dunk it.
Yeah.
No, just like put your elbow down and then dunk. And I'm like, Shaq, that's not going to happen, bud.
Right.
I need to go talk to Steph Curry, you know,
Yeah.
or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or somebody, it's just like
Yeah.
the advice doesn't, and
Yeah.
so he had all these pieces of advice that to me, he started to go off the rails.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know why? It's because you have this high IQ. So where am I going with that with the kids? I think I told my kids there's a few superpowers, okay? And I'm going to get into, I'll skip the first three to get to the fourth one.
Okay.
One of the powers is the acquisition of knowledge.
Yeah.
And I said there's only two types of knowledge that are valuable. One is that's valuable to yourself. So something like learning about your personal health, learning about your psychology, something that really only directly provides value to you.
Sure.
The second one is knowledge that brings value to the marketplace. So like a brain surgeon,
Yeah.
you know, he's like, hey, I can fix, I can handle that. And like, well, I will give you a lot of money to handle that. Or even a hot dog vendor, like, hey, I'm hungry. Hey, I have a hot dog. It's the value of the marketplace. Anything outside of that is some form of trivia. It can be neat to know.
Yeah.
It can be kind of cool, but if it's not directly bringing value to yourself, or it's like, oh, who's the fourth president? There's not a job description that says we're looking for somebody who knows who the fourth president is. It's just, it's kind of a piece of trivia, right? And I think what happened was a lot of people were sold, hey, look, you're going to go into this education system. And when you come out, you're going to be very valuable to the marketplace. They went into the system and they came out and the marketplace said, I don't even know what to do with you.
Yeah.
And they're like, but I have all this debt because I was given a loan. They went like this and they went, yep, you can have the money.
Yeah.
And you look back on it and you go, well, you guys weren't wise. You took this money, you got a degree that doesn't the marketplace has no value for.
Right.
Not only that, but you know, you could have got this degree for X and you took a loan of 3X. Why? Because you may have taken some really cool spring breaks and you may have chilled out and you may have eaten out a lot in college. Like it wasn't the same college experience I had, right?
Right.
And I'm like, oh, you should have known better. Really? At 18, they should have known better? So I think there's a whole generation that's kind of gone through this mill and they're sitting there with debt that they cannot get rid of.
Yeah.
And they've spent time acquiring this knowledge that the marketplace says, I don't know what to do with you. There's no value. I have no value. I'm not even going to say the degrees because I could list them all, but I can tell you this. If the word science is in your degree, there's no science involved.
Yeah.
Chemistry is called chemistry. Biology is called biology.
Yeah.
So, but they have this degree and they don't really have a valuable skill set, right? And now they're upset. They wake up with a mountain of debt.
Yep.
They're told that assets are, the dollar has declined dramatically, right? And that's what I mean by, I think they're right to be unhappy with because they look back at what was given to people in the 50s and 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
I know they didn't have iPhones.
Yeah.
I know they didn't have all the things that we have. But they also, the barriers weren't there. It's a trade-off.
Yeah.
And I would take, if I were going to be born, I don't think it's better to be born today than it would have been to be born in 1971. I think the system was more aligned for me in 1971
Than it is today.
than it is today.
Well, maybe. I'm not going to debate that. I think that's everybody's individual experience that would probably, ultimately inform that decision, I think, because technology now and the way that things are moving, we are truly in the most prosperous period of time in history. The options that are available for people are more now than they've ever been. Vocational work, job opportunity, access to education and knowledge, it's by far the most it's ever been. And so I don't disagree with you. I just perhaps I'm looking at it, looking through the same window, but from a different vantage point. Mm-hmm. And I truly do see huge opportunity. Now, I think you got to be informed with it. For example, my son Jacob, he's 9, and he's starting to have questions. Actually, you know what? I won't use Jacob as an example. Tristan, my 26-year-old daughter, years ago, she asked me, Dad, I'm interested in this particular profession. And she told me she wanted to pursue it. And I won't mention it so I don't pass judgment on what it was. But when she told me what it was she was interested in, I said, that's wonderful, honey. I said, but let's take a few minutes and explore what a lifestyle might look like in that profession. So we looked at the kind of home that she'd own as a result of that. We looked at the kind of car that she would be driving as a result of that profession. We looked at the type of vacations that she would be probably enjoying as a result of that vocation or that job. We looked at what her lifetime expectancy for work might look like. And it wasn't real positive. That's the point of the story. It wasn't real positive, but I wanted her to go through that exercise, because for me to tell her I'm dad, she's not going to listen to me.
Yeah.
But if I ask her to go and check these things out, research them for herself. So we figured out what the annual income would be for that profession, what a house would cost at that time, a car would cost at that time, vacations cost. It turns out, based on her information, not mine, it turns out that the lifestyle that she would have had to have accepted was not consistent with what she wanted. So that told her she needed a different career. Does that make sense?
100%.
And I mean, obviously I'm an involved parent, so,
well, the thought that went through my mind is she sought wise counsel.
She did.
And she got it.
And she was willing to listen, which is credit to her. I mean, it's easy for us to say something. It's three times as hard for them to listen to it. But I think about that process, and she had to make her own decision. I think there's a lot of younger kids that do go to college, maybe pursue a career path that maybe they haven't done that extra homework on, to see if it really lines up with what they want. And I'm pretty in line with this, because full disclosure, I sit on the board of trustees at Simpson University here in town. We've got about 1,000 students.
Okay.
And when kids are coming into the university, one of the things that we have as a responsibility, as a fiduciary, really, for us to be thinking about is job placement after graduation, right?
Yes.
But I look at it and go, you got to go one step further. It's not just job placement. It's, did you think about what that lifestyle might look like? And is that the lifestyle you want?
Is this sounding familiar at all, Caleb?
Yeah.
We had this conversation right before you got here.
Oh, did you?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Because that's going to have a lot of impact on, for the college and the universities. I can tell you what we're focused on, because we get graded on this, is what's the job placement after graduation? Okay, fine. We'll help you get a job. But the bigger question is it the job that's right for you based on the goals you really have? And I think that conversation might be missing from high school. That might be missing from parents talking to their kids. It might be missing from mentors that want to have mentoring of children. I think this is an area that we need. I'm just trying to be nice.
You're trying extra hard to be nice. I never thought of myself as the devil's advocate.
Yeah.
But
I just think so I would tell kids today, the world is your oyster. It truly is.
Yeah, I
the
agree.
access to information is beyond anything we've ever comprehended. The opportunity for anything you want to do is literally possible.
Yeah.
But you need to slow down enough and think enough about what it is you really want to accomplish in your life and what you want your life to look like, because truly it needs to be a life by design. And you can do that if you think. Because everybody, or I should say think well, because everybody thinks, right? I mean, figured out how to get here today, but not everybody thinks well. And I do encourage people to slow down enough to think well.
Well, I feel like we could probably go round and round on this for a little bit, because I think you are a very positive person. When we talk, you're very positive.
You're leaning over the cliff, and I'm always grabbing you by the back of your shirt, saying, "Come on, buddy, get back over here. Let's go." Yeah.
And so
in a good sense. But.
Yeah, I just think the average person doesn't have wise counsel. And so many people are leaning into this big brother as wise counsel, and the big brother has not given wise counsel. Hasn't given wise counsel in a long time. In fact, not only has it not given wise counsel, it's given very poor counsel. And I think that's why we're seeing some of the things we're seeing. We've seen them for a while now.
Yeah.
And I think that there's mechanisms in place. I saw a saying on a sandwich billboard of all wisdom on a sandwich billboard. A sandwich board, right? And it said, small minds discuss people, mediocre minds discuss events, great minds discuss ideas.
Yeah.
And that's why I don't get caught up in, I'm not going to say any names of politicians I don't like, but I am going to point out, like, hey, we have a system that allows people with very bad intentions for the group to start steering the ship. And so back to what I was saying was, they were told, hey, look, take on this debt, you're going to acquire this wonderful skill set, and none of them got wise counsel. And something else you and I talk a lot about in real estate, and this is my pet peeve, because and this is going to be totally, you're going to, oh yeah, is I always talk to people like, hey, what's the real estate market like? I'm like, I don't know. Are we talking about downtown Detroit or Reading? Like there's markets,
question.
there's segments and markets. Like
Sure.
Reading is not California.
Right.
It's in California, yeah, but if I go look at Bakersfield numbers and LA numbers and San Francisco numbers, they're not going to be in jive with Reading numbers. And California is not in jive with Illinois,
Right.
and et cetera, et cetera. And so it's the same thing with when we talk about these households. Not everybody has wise counsel. In fact, I would say that the vast majority are not getting good advice. They've been given very, very productive advice.
Yeah.
And I think that has been something that's been going on in America. And I love this country.
Me too.
And when I love something, I want to see it flourish. And when I love my children, and when I correct them, it is not from a place of like, I want to talk down to you. And I tell them like, hey, this isn't judgment. We're assessing so that we can course correct.
Yeah.
Everybody veers off course, right?
Sure.
We all fall shy of the glory of God. So being comfortable, reshooting your azimuth, reassessing, hey, I had these goals, but I kind of veered off a little bit. And when I look at where I'm at, they're not taught that. That's not being taught in mass. It's being taught very granular.
Yeah.
And so even as our country's GDP goes up, we're seeing a separation we have between the haves and the have-nots.
Sure.
And these small haves, some of them got wise counsel. Some of them are just naturally, 7'2" when it comes to intellect or whatever, certain skills. Some of them are part of a group of people that exploit the system.
Yeah.
And these things have always occurred. This happened in Egypt 4,000 years ago. It happens in Russia 300 years. It always happens. But I would like to see the systems that are not working addressed more.
What systems?
I think our government is too big.
Okay, sure.
I think there's overregulation. You and I have talked about that, about why isn't there more building going on in Reading?
Yeah.
You've said many times that, hey, drive around and look at all the neighborhoods that were built in the early 90s.
Yeah.
Are the houses still standing?
Yeah.
Okay, so look at how much more regulation. I think on our last podcast, you talked about just 2 line items.
Correct.
You talked about they force solar.
Yep.
And they force fire sprinklers.
Correct.
And these 2 line items.
50,000.
Yeah. And you're forcing them. And so suddenly now you're pricing people out that could buy a starter home, a brand new home for $350. They can't buy it for $400.
Correct.
And the builder can't build and sell for $350 because they've got to put these, and that's just 2 line items. I remember another story. My dad moved to Texas and he bought a little house on an acre and he tore it down to the studs. And the inspector came out and the inspector was walking through. He's like, oh, you're from California. And he goes, well, how do you know that? And he goes, this is way beyond code. He goes, this is way beyond Texas code. Well, the houses aren't falling down in Texas. Maybe when a hurricane hits Houston or something, but hurricanes tend to tear down everything.
Yeah.
That's an example of the government's gotten too big.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, really good example of that. And I know this isn't a real estate thing, but another example in 2015 or 16, a group of kids, tragically college students, were standing on a balcony in Berkeley and the balcony collapsed. Mm-hmm. It was really sad and unfortunate, right? Mm-hmm. As a result of that, though, we have a new regulation in the state of California that every single balcony has to be inspected on rental properties, et cetera, which is forcing a lot of people, it's essentially a cash call on their investment. They're going to have to reinvest in their property. If they don't have the money, they have to sell their property and liquidate it and do things otherwise they wouldn't have done in order to accommodate for it. And most of it is unnecessary. It really is. But that's a perfect example of an overreaction at the state level, where it's having a massive financial consequence on those who own properties that happen to have a balcony on the second story, right?
Yeah.
And grossly overcompensated for a tragic event. It's like, well, we need to exercise some more common sense than that, right? But you're right. I mean, if I had my way, I would say absolutely government needs to be smaller. Private market needs to be larger as a result. It can certainly weather economic moves better, because government bloats. That's just part of its natural organism. It gets too big, and
there's no mechanisms in place for it to get smaller.
Correct.
All the mechanisms are for it to expand.
Right. So if revenues slow down, they have one of 2 options. They cut the services they were offering, which people had become dependent on, right? Or they raise the taxes, which cripples the market in which that's got the problem in the first place. So it's just not a good solution. And, your guess is better than mine if they'll figure it out in California, but we got billions of dollars of deficit now at the state level. And you have to ask yourself, well, what is that going to mean? They're going to be cutting services, or are they going to be raising taxes, or or both, which I would imagine that's what they're going to do. And they'll probably kick the can and issue more debt. They'll probably sell more bonds on top of that. So just exasperating the problem for the future. So, those adults should have been taught at a younger age the consequences of those types of decisions. It's too bad.
When you said that, I think it was Benjamin Franklin that said, anyone who will trade security for freedom will have neither.
True.
I think that was him. And if it wasn't, it's going to make me smart to say, to quote Benjamin Franklin. So we'll just assume it's Benjamin Franklin, and people in the comments will be more than happy to correct me. Thank you for that. But that's what I mean by that's an example of, hey, look, our current governmental system is not designed to make itself more efficient. It's not designed. I don't want to talk about congressperson this or senator that or governor that, because they get replaced. If you don't fix the system, they get replaced by somebody that sometimes is like, oh, wow. Can we go back to that other guy that was just inept and not inept and corrupt? And that's what I mean. Our system is being exploited. And it has been for some time now.
Well, and it will continue unless you have an educated population that actually understands what they're doing when they vote, and I'm not talking about sides. I could give a rip about one side or the other in terms of politics.
I think it's a facade.
I find myself to be more of an independent now more than ever, only because I don't want to be decisive to one side or the other. I think it's counterproductive, especially in California. So for me, I look at it and go, let's just talk about policy all the time, and I wish we could get there as a state and say, forget it, man, get rid of all these parties and let's just talk about issues, because we need to get educated. Wouldn't it be great if the state of California was the smartest state when it comes to actual policy and process?
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be amazing if every decision was actually based on good, solid policy? Solving real issues based on policy and not partisan politics. I think it'd be amazing. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I mean, we could literally say,
well, I don't know why it sounds ridiculous.
Nobody's allowed to be not allowed, that would be going too far, but we don't endorse candidates. We endorse policies. And that would be, I think in this state particularly, I think it would be a wonderful thing.
This is why several of the founding fathers didn't want us to have a two-party system.
Right. But there has been.
It is.
It's.
I think this is why the founding fathers started a democratic republic and not a democracy. I think that we may be a democratic republic, but we're leaning towards democracy. And I don't think that's a good thing.
I mean, the state of California is suffering the consequences of a democratic republic right now. People get to vote with their feet. And they have been.
They found a fix for that, didn't they?
Well, I mean, you look at the state right now, and I don't want to go down that road too far. I don't want to offend anybody, but if you have a state tax system that's built on, I think it's 1% of the state's wealthiest are covering over 50% of the tax revenue that's necessary for funding the state.
And yet the masses are told that the rich don't pay taxes.
Correct. Now, if that 1% leaves at even a 25%,
and they're leaving,
and they are leaving, if they start to leave as a result, you just lost two legs to a three-legged stool. This thing comes crumbling down real fast. So either you start talking nice to people that are funding the government, or you accept the fact that you're going to have to broaden the tax base dramatically to shore up your social programs, or you're going to be cutting your social programs, or you're going to be issuing massive amounts of debt, which at some point, people will stop buying and say that we're like a C rating instead of an A rating, and they won't trust us anymore. So, I mean, this whole state, and the only reason I complain about it is because I can't vote with my feet. My children are here. My company is here. My investments are here. And I think that God has called me to this dirt, good or bad. I'm here, right?
This is a beautiful place, man.
It is.
This is an absolutely beautiful place.
Well, and that's where we have the benefit of if everybody got their act together, we win instantly. It'd only take an hour to fix it. I mean, truly, you could literally walk in and change a lot of the policies that are currently on the books now. And within 1 hour, you'd have more people flooding into this state, because it's one of the very best, beautiful states in the country. And we could immediately solve that problem, but that would take some courage, and I don't know politicians very well, so I don't know. So I can't really speak to if there's enough of them out there that could do it.
I we can switch topics, but I just think our system needs an overhaul. I think good people in politics exist, but I think that they get overwhelmed by the people that are either A, inept, or B, corrupt.
Or,
I think there's
or see the reality of just how hard it really is.
I think it's made hard. I think it's made hard by the corrupt and the inept.
Yeah, I think it's hard.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think it would have been hard to issue building permits in Palisades.
No, it shouldn't have been easy.
It should have been easy, and yet it didn't happen.
Correct.
I don't. Yeah. So anyway, and I agree. I'm not a party. People. That's the funny thing is that we get so ingrained to two parties that someone can sum you up. They can ask you one question about one topic, and whatever your answer is,
they put you in a category.
They're able to label you immediately, and they go, well, then you believe in all these things. It's like, no, I don't.
Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. I think my positions are a weave.
Me too.
So it's
always have been.
I
voted both parties my whole life.
Yeah.
I've voted for people.
Yeah.
And sadly, a lot of them said whatever I wanted to hear. And then the second they got the keys, they're like, good luck with that, bud. And you're like, oh, you got me, But yeah, no, same thing. I don't have a party affiliation. I try my friends that are aligned with one party. I try to tell them, like, guys, the two-party system to me is a facade.
Well, it's really hard. I mean, you're in a supermajority in the state of California, so it's really counterproductive to be anything other than just, a policy person.
Yeah, yeah, totally. Well, I want to come back to business because when I work with a lot of realtors, and you and I were on a mastermind call this morning.
Yeah.
And I can't remember verbatim what you said, but I loved it when you talked about treating it like a business, like in real estate. And I know you're super positive and you never want to say anything negative, but I've met a lot of realtors that don't treat their business like a business. They treat it kind of like a hobby, or, I'll do it when I can, or like it's like intramural sports. And they still get a modicum of success. But one of the things I noticed working with you very quickly was this felt like a business. This had standards and SOPs and a mission statement and all these things that if you went into like a big business that you would expect these things.
Yeah.
And training and onboarding and all this stuff and standards and what gets measured gets managed. And I had not seen a whole lot of that in real estate. Now, maybe I was hanging out in the wrong real estate offices, but I think it's safe to say that that's not the norm. You're not the normal approach. And you kind of, this morning on the mastermind, you were like, hey, guys, this is a business. Like these are, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I don't know where you want me to go with that part of it.
Where did you get that? Where'd that come from? Was that your uncle?
Well, I think my uncle exposed me to what really it takes to run a company in the United States of America.
Regardless of the industry.
Regardless of the industry. The risk that you take, the overwhelming amount of investment and not money, time, and what you give up to do that. So I just had a healthy perspective on it. I was in the Marines, like you said, and you and I were both in, and I was in a unit that had high accountability. And if you didn't do your job right, they would move you from your unit immediately. So it wasn't the normal, unit where you could kind of get away with stuff. You do your job right, or you're not going to have your job tomorrow, because it was a unit that you just move away from. So I've always had that high level of discipline around doing what I say I'm going to do and following through with what I've committed to. And I think that I took that, in working in small teams, because, for me, I was in 6-man teams or 12-man teams, depending on the operation. And, so I'm just used to being in that group of where, you don't just lead with words, you lead with example, you lead with action, you lead with what you say, you actually do it. Because you can erode trust quick. In any environment if you don't follow through with what you say.
Yeah.
So that goes the same thing for setting standards. I mean, there's no reason to set a standard if you had no intention of holding to it. So, when we set...
Guilty as charged.
Sure, yeah. Well, I do it with my kids all the time. I mean,
that's what I was thinking when I said it.
My older kids, I probably was a better standard setter and a standard holder.
Yep.
With our younger ones, oh gosh, it's harder.
It is, man.
You get tired, but that's reality, and you have to hold the line. Otherwise, you're teaching them the wrong thing. So with the employees, it's kind of like kids. You set an example. You hold people to a standard. They know that you will, but they also know that you hold yourself to the same standards. And I think that's where it really makes a difference. You mentioned with those people that sometimes they don't necessarily follow through with what they're not promise keepers. And if you're not a promise keeper all the time, then people see that. And if they see that, then they lose trust in what you're saying. And if they lose trust in what you're saying, then you're saying things that doesn't really matter. You're pouring liquid into a closed mouth. That's a waste of time. So what you need to do is, be clear on what you want to do, execute, be a person of integrity in terms of what you say you're going to do, actually do it, and then encourage other people to do the same thing, So that's all I can say, because I've had people ask me, is it my background that does it? And it's like, well, I mean, everything kind of makes you who you are today. If people don't like what they see today, it's all their fault, because I am a collection of all the people that I've spent my life with up to this moment, right? Mm-hmm. That old saying that you're the sum of the average of the people you spend time with. Mm-hmm. So if they're mad at me, I'm going to put it right back on them and be like, I'm just a reflection of what you guys have been for me, right? But I think that the folks that we're talking about, what I don't like is if somebody writes themselves off thinking that perhaps something that we're doing is a fluke, or that, he's the exception. I've heard that a little bit. Oh, well, they're the exception. It's like, no, anybody can do this, but you have to choose to do it. And that's I don't want to let my friends off the hook thinking that, well, it's because he was in the Marines, and since I was never in the Marines, I can't do that. It's like, no, that's not how this works. These are proven principles across all businesses, not just mine.
So that you kind of espouse your core philosophy, right then. And the second thing I think about is, you had put together I don't even know how to, like maybe a work operating system. And there's literally a guy who did this now. They have a thing called EOS. He put out a book called Traction. Yeah. And he states, hey, I got my ideas from these other books. And what was funny is you had read those other books as well, and built a system very, very similar. Yeah. Because you told me when we first met, like, hey, check this out.
Yeah, Michael Gerber, E-Myth, when it first came out, that was the first book I really got my hands on, where I understand that you needed to build a system, a process, and think about scale. Think about how to deliver an amazing experience for a customer in the type of business that you're in. And then when you figure out how to deliver an amazing experience, learn how to scale that so you can do it 1,000 times. And I think that's what the gist of that book is about. Another book that I read early on related to Gino Wickman, who wrote the book you're talking about, the EOS system, was a book called Rockefeller Habits. Yeah. I think it was Vern Harnish, if I remember right. Another great book, but essentially taking, scalable quarterly business plans. For us, we don't come up with 5 or 6 ideas each year to work on. I'm coming up with 5 or 6 ideas each quarter based on what I think the next quarter needs. And we have an annual business plan, a quarter business plan, and it breaks down into smaller business plans after that. But I have rocks that I have to tackle personally. My staff has rocks they have to tackle. My agents have rocks they need to tackle. And so collectively, we're all accomplishing things, and we're very clear on what we each individually need to accomplish and how that contributes to the whole. And so we've stuck with it. But yeah, I would recommend for people, I wish I would have had that book, EOS or Rocket Fuel, back in the day, because a lot of this we had to fly. I've spent, I don't even know. I've probably been on at least 50, maybe 75 business trips where I was gone for 3 or 4 days to go visit an office and try to figure out what their best practices were, and then take 1 or 2 ideas back to our office in Reading. And I did that a bunch. I mean, I flew all over the place trying to figure that out.
And you still do it now, except that we live in a virtual space. So like that mastermind, it's these collective people come together from across the United States, and everyone says, what are you doing that's working? Yeah,
it's a little easier now. But back then, what you lose, though, in that virtual experience that we had when we were on the ground is that, I would walk into a company and, I had 2 hats. Sometimes I was there as a consultant, and, that was a bit of a different experience. But then sometimes I was just there to learn, right? Fully just learn. Both sides you're trying to learn, but one of them I wasn't getting paid. The other one I was, right? And so, but both cases, I would start off in their accounting department. I'm like, hold on, before you tell me your story, because I already knew they were going to tell me a story.
Yeah.
I'd be like, let's go and go and talk about your books, right? And I'd start there because I could see real quick what was really going on. A lot of people try to ignore their books because they don't want to admit the fact that their books are not very good.
Yeah.
And for a lot of companies, they try to emulate other companies. Well, what if that other company is not profitable? Did you want to emulate that too? So you really do want to, get back down to the brass tacks of, is this company model, is it a good model, and is it sustainable? Is it scalable? Is it efficient? Is it delivering the core product in the way in which you want to deliver it? Is the customer satisfied to the point that you could say that it's a body of work you could all be proud of? It's all those things that you have to look at.
You and I, both our industries, I'm sure there's a lot more. I'm thinking about how many times we've looked at, there are people in our industries that are very well known
Mm-hmm.
and talk a really good game.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you look at the financials, they don't exist.
Mm-hmm.
So I think about some of the, it's the same thing. It's the same exact thing in my industry. There's so many people that publish content about marketing and digital marketing. And when you go in, they don't actually do any of it. They're just selling to digital marketers. And there's a lot of people in the real estate space that are hired to come in as consultants and coaches. And when you look at their production, they didn't really ever have any.
Never had any.
Yeah, but they're very good at, I'm not gonna name any names. I was this morning talking with a young man that you and I both know. I have a standing meeting with him. He's insanely impressive. We saw a demonstration of something he built this morning, and we were talking about value versus perceived value. And we were talking about how many people are in certain names in the industry. Nobody like personally that we knew, but like people that are icons in the industry. Yeah. And our assessment, because we both will go and we'll watch the video and then we'll read some more and we'll look some stuff. And as we did, we're like, there's no value here. This was incredible perceived value. But like when you started peeling it back, you're like, and wait, there's what? Yeah.
It's well, I mean, I know this, I'm trying to be sensitive to who might be watching this because people in Reading, it's an all Reading podcast, so I won't go down this road too far. But in real estate, it's weird. It's changed. I mean, when I was younger, it was really a professionals market. And you aspired to be really professional in your services, right? And how you looked, how you carried yourself, what you did. And now it's like, well, you wear an overly tight t-shirt, you put a flat brim hat on, you throw a couple gold chains on, and you're qualified now to be a real estate coach. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like now. And my wife and I, we're getting older. I mean, not my wife, of course. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say that. I'm getting older. My wife has maintained the same age of 35, I think it is, forever now. As a joke, everybody, just in case you didn't know. But
everyone's like, she's a vampire?
She's a vampire.
Wait, what?
But we're just realizing that it's like, wow, the industry really has changed, and we won't be like that. I mean, I don't understand it. I don't know if I'm curious what other people might think that's watching this. Would you really rather have somebody in shorts and a t-shirt making recommendations, or would you like somebody that took their work serious, dressed halfway professional to show you, or at least demonstrate to you they cared enough about you to dress up a little bit and serve you? I don't know. It's a weird world now.
Well, my industry had a term that, and I think my industry is heavily related to your industry because I think a huge component of real estate is marketing. Yeah, a huge component. You're not building the houses. It's like your uncle had a manufacturing plant. A huge portion of his was being able to even take the product to market before he even started marketing. A huge, his operation costs, expenses. Yeah. With real estate, there's a lot of legal, there's a lot going on, but there's marketing. If I'm going to list my house with you, I have to know, like, hey, are you going to market my house? Right. Is the world going to know that my house is for sale? Right. Okay. And in marketing, there's fake it till you make it. That's a huge, I find that the vast majority of people I compete against, I inherit a lot of clients that will say like, yeah, we spent this money and we have this and that, but we can't track any sales at all. And, it's hard to tell them like, yeah, you spent a lot of money on perceived value. Yeah. But it was, and I think that bleeds over into your industry. And I think we could pick probably a lot of industries that bleeds over into. But that part of the person who's hyping and getting people emotional and stuff, that's not the person that walks into the accounting room first. That person goes right in the sales room, starts blasting the music and hyping everybody up. And you know, hype and motivation and stuff, that's good. That's supposed to be like a small little burst to get you going.
Yeah.
But if your fundamentals aren't there, if the system's flawed, you know what I mean? It doesn't go anywhere.
Well, and it's hard. I don't like it when, I'll give you an example. I mean, a lot of people in like the real estate industry, right? They'll let's say, hey, let's have a call night. And you know, on a Tuesday night, we're gonna all come in, we'll bring pizza in, we'll call for 3 hours, blah, 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 blah. And you know, not that I hadn't tried that years ago, but what I learned was like the next day's calls sucked. You know, they were tired, right?
They had a sales hangover.
So I had them motivated for like 2.5 hours, but now I'm going to pay the price for that for 2 days now because, you know, they ate pizza when they probably shouldn't have, and they feel like they've already made their calls for the week anyway. So it's a total waste, right? Yeah. So what I've learned is that, you know, you really have to help agents stay in momentum long enough that the work habits that they've created, I'll slow it down. I'll give it to you this way. There's a few phases to sales. You have what we call the formulation phase, which is you come up with a plan that makes sense. And it's based on probably proof of concept that other people have done before you that you know, hey, if I do, I'm probably going to get a similar outcome that they're getting if I do these things. That's your formulation phase, right? Concentration phase. You actually have to do the things that which you know you have to do in order for you to get the outcome that you're looking for, right? Well, you have to be in that concentration phase for about 90 days before it becomes more of a habit, right? Yeah. But your habits aren't strong yet. So, but you're going to start to see some results, right? So 90 days in, you start getting some results and all of a sudden things start feeling a little bit better. And it doesn't matter what business you're in, that's going to be the case, right? Yeah. Then you start servicing that business and you begin to stop doing the very things that got you there in the first place, right? And then there's this like, you never get to a full momentum because you keep on going back and forth from momentum to concentration, momentum to concentration. So what I've learned was help our people stay in momentum for a very long period of time. And what I'm looking for, and this unfortunately takes like 3 to 5 years to do it. So this isn't, everybody's like, oh, that's a bummer. But it does take that long because you have to do this 3, 4, 5,000 times before people finally realize, okay, this has become a part of my identity to do this every day. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like, and I don't mean your whole identity has to be, you know, sales or whatever it is you do for a living. What I mean is that it's a part of it where if you didn't go to work today, you'd feel bad. That's when you know it's a part of your identity, right? Yeah. For a person that doesn't work very often, when you go to work, you feel bad. It's the opposite, you know, so.
You miss the couch.
Yeah, you miss the couch, right? So you have to get people to the point where it becomes part of their identity because motivation comes and goes.
Yep.
But your identity doesn't, you know, that part will stick with you. So you have to be around people and encourage them and keep them accountable and help them to stay in that lane and in that zone for as long as they can until you know for sure, like if I wasn't here, they'd still do it. Does that make sense?
I mean, 100%, and it has nothing to do with real estate. This is everywhere.
That's everywhere.
You could be a football coach talking about building a program that's trying to consistently year in, year out, make it in the playoffs and make it to the Super, you know. Why do some organizations year in and year out and the coach comes and the star quarterback leaves and they lose 4 players and they might have 1 year where it's like,
rebuild a little bit.
They build and then right back at it. You know what I mean? Why? Because they have these systems. They have this culture. Right?
Systems and process and momentum and consistency, proof of concept. I mean, half the reasons why those players come in behind those other successful players that have now left, half the reason why they're successful when they come in is because they believe in the program. Yeah. You know, and that's a big part of it. You got to believe in what you're doing.
Yeah, and I don't think that's industry specific at all.
No.
I think like what you're talking about probably lends itself more to certain arms of industry like sales, because I think sales is, you know, but I can see where it works with programming. Yeah. You know, I think it's a larger factor in different arms of the industry, but it is a factor in all of them.
Well, most, with the exception of, again, the government, not in a negative sense, but I mean, because that's more of a servicing experience, but most companies, most businesses have sales. Oh, yeah. Otherwise, you're not going to be conducting your business or service, right? Yeah. So in that regard, I mean, everybody really, all of us have one thing in common. I don't care if you're an attorney, a CPA, financial advisor, stockbroker, real estate agent, you know, insurance person, whatever, it doesn't matter, programmer. marketing person. We are all first
Male
lead
model.
generators. Male model.
Male model.
Yeah. We have to lead generate first.
Yeah.
You know, you first have to have customers in which you can offer your product or service to. And if you don't do that part, it doesn't matter how good you are, you're out of business.
Yeah.
So
I want to pivot a little bit because this has become like a business, but I knew it would because I mean, I know you in I think several ways, but one of the big ways is watching you run a successful business. And so, you know, I mean, the conversations you and I have, we have personal conversations, but they usually lean towards real estate and business. And you've helped me and influenced me in my business. Disclaimer, I've taken almost none of your advice. And so I haven't had your level of success.
nobody does. So it doesn't
but I was like, oh, that's absolutely great. You know, never gonna, here, let me just put this over here. That'll hold up my
smartest piece of furniture in the office.
yeah,
right
that's,
there.
you know what I mean? Is that a Peloton? No, that's a coat rack. I sold the coat rack, by the way, just because I was like,
Finally.
okay, it was mocking me. That bike was mocking me. You know what I mean?
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, but I want to pivot a little bit about family because you do have 4 kids.
Yeah.
And you have 2 that are both of them are out of college now
Yes.
and professionals and working with you.
Yes.
That's
they are.
pretty awesome.
It's very awesome.
And then you've got 2 little ones that are starting the journey, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And how's that? The second, you nailed it too. The first one's, man, just everything's run by we run by the book. You understand? We have SOPs for what, you know, we brush our teeth between 8 and 8-7. And then it's just like because I have the same thing. I have 2 daughters in college.
Yeah.
And they tell me all the time that I'm not as strict as I am with the 2 boys. I don't think it has anything to do with gender. I just think you get old and tired, man.
Yeah, that's what it is,
And
man.
when your first kids come, you're so intimidated. I was so intimidated and so scared, you know, and just the first baby was just like she was made from porcelain. And I just, you know, by the 4th one, it was like, where is it? I don't know. I saw him running with some scissors a minute ago. He was around here a minute ago. Was those firecrackers?
They'll probably be fine.
Yeah. You know, how's he going to learn if he doesn't fall and stab himself? He's not going to learn, you know what I mean?
He'll only do it once.
How's that, like that second, what is that? Talk personal about some of that stuff.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm really fortunate. I have an amazing wife of 29 years this year. And so anything I share with you about my joy at home is because of her. And I don't mean that because she's going to probably see this, but it's
Maybe a little bit.
Yeah, it's just true though. I have an amazing wife, and she's an amazing mother. So with the kids, you know, we have 2 older ones, 26 and 22, Tristan and Taylor. They both went to college. Mom and I told them that they wanted to go into real estate right out of high school, and we told them both no. Said you have to go to college first, get that experience, decide if you want to do anything else other than what mom and dad are doing, and we support you whatever you decide to do. So for parents, if you're interested in having your kids come into the business with you, don't tell them to. You know, we didn't. We told them no. You'd have to wait. And so after the oldest one graduated, she wanted to come into real estate, so she did. And we kept her on the administrative side for a while, and then she moved into sales, and she's doing terrific. My 22-year-old came in and same thing, graduated from college, and then is now on the administrative side and looking forward to the sales side. So I'm sure she'll be there. And then we adopted 2. One's 9, Jacob. We got him when he was a baby. And Juliet, she's 4. We got her when she was a baby. So, you know, we basically started over. So I don't know if you remember, we went on our sailboat and took a little over a year off.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was probably a really good idea for us. So our oldest one was away to college, and my other one was in high school at the time, and COVID hit. My little boy was at home with us. Obviously, he was like, I think 4 at the time, 3 at the time. And so when they came home with COVID hitting, we already owned our sailboat in Florida, and we had been vacationing. When we go on vacation, we go and hang out on our sailboat in Florida. And so when COVID hit, I told my wife, I said, honey, we got one chance right now. Both the girls are totally down with spending a lot of time on the sailboat. Why don't we do this? And my wife's like, there's no way. We can't just leave the business. I said, we're just going to tell everybody we're going to retire. Because I wanted to be gone. I was like, I'll be gone for 3 years if my kids will let me. There would be no expiration date to that trip. And so we went to the girls and just said, hey, mom and dad want to do this. What do you think? And of course, everybody was excited about the prospect of doing that. Beats sitting at home during COVID.
Yeah.
So that's why we ended up telling everybody we're retiring, because I honestly didn't know when I'd come back, and I didn't want to overpromise that, hey, we're going to be gone on a sabbatical or something if we didn't know if we were coming back or not. So I told everybody we're retiring, jumped on our boat, took off with our kids, and we just had the most amazing time that I just know for the rest of my life. I'm gonna be so grateful that we did it.
What awesome. And you were gone, what, about 14, 18 months, something like that?
Yeah, it was about a year total.
Okay.
Because the girls, it was hard because Tristan was still online college, so we had to shoot for cell towers up and down the Caribbean.
This is pre-Starlink.
Yeah, pre-Starlink, exactly. But what it did was it really fortified the relationships in our family to the extent that, we have an unbreakable bond that I don't think everybody gets to enjoy as much as we do.
Yeah.
Grateful for it. We got called when we were in the middle of our trip. What caused that trip to go shorter was we got called in the middle of that trip and shared that my 4-year-old daughter, was going to be born. And she's a full sibling to my son. So immediately we were like, well, it looks like it's going to be time to come home. God has a bigger plan. So, and now I'm really glad we did that because, now I've been able to be a part of watching my older daughters, develop as young professionals. And, I just see God's hand in all of it. It's really, really cool to see.
That's awesome.
So I don't mean to bore everybody with a long story, but
dude, that's an awesome story.
For us, it's, my cup is always overflowing when I think about my wife and my children and the many blessings the Lord has given to us.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
No, what are you talking about? Like this boring story of me living on a yacht, like when all of you guys were locked in your house, I was doing this boring thing, living on a lot in the Caribbean. You don't want to hear about me.
Well, you'd be surprised though. I actually had people not so happy with me. It was, and I can understand.
Well, then you're doing something right.
Yeah. No, I had some criticism that came back from that. I don't mind it at all. I can appreciate their perspective.
That reminds me of the time that Saddam Hussein wrote an open letter condemning me. And I was like, I think I'm doing something right. I think this is the right guy.
You might be over the target.
I think this is the right guy to get this letter from. So when, I get criticism now, and I'm trying to remember the last time I got criticism from anybody I respected.
Well, that's hard.
Anyway,
yeah.
The criticism I get now is like, I'm like, perfect. You think I'm doing it wrong?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. I've always used it, logs on the fire for me, be careful what you say to me because it might just motivate me.
You're kind of like Michael Jordan that way. You take a lot of things personal and then score 47 points in the next game.
I'm looking for a reason.
Working with you, I think it's a wonderful balance. So I've never seen you lose your temper, but I have seen you go, oh, really? Challenge accepted.
Right. Yeah.
I shall see you at dawn, pistols at dawn, and I'm like, yeah, can I be your lieutenant? If he doesn't shoot you, I will. I just want to let you know, let's do this. So
it's not always fair though. As I really do look for, people to be competing with, it's part of how I do things. So
that's what a healthy market is. A healthy marketplace. Who likes it when you say, hey, like there's only one place to eat in this whole town?
Correct.
When have you been in a little town and you're like, where can I eat? There's only one restaurant.
Yeah.
Well, that food's not going to be any good.
Sounds like the chow hall.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Exactly. That's not any good. You're like, oh, well, we got tons of options. We got 15 Mexican restaurants. We got 6 Chinese restaurants. Then one's the best one? And
it inspires you to get better.
Yeah.
And so again, it causes you to want to be setting goals to be better than you were yesterday. And no, I enjoy it. I don't wish any ill will. I want everybody to do better because I know that'll drive me to do better.
Yeah, well, there's also the whole abundance versus scarcity mindset, and I think you have a real abundance mindset that there's more gold in the mountain than anybody can carry.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean. And other people I've seen have a kind of a scarcity mindset. So if they miss out on anything, it crashes for them. You know what I mean? It affects them too negatively, and that's I don't think that's I think there's some kind of balance in there between saying, hey, look, everybody can win. Some people are just going to win a lot more than others. You know what I mean? Like some people are just going to get more. And I want to be, I want to hoist the trophy at the end of the year. You know what I mean? But that's kind of built into, I think Western society has a lot of that built into is that it's like there was one winner and 31 losers. Like no one remembers like, people in sports will say something like, they're awful. And I'm like, they went to the championship last year. Yeah. And they lost. It's like, They went to the championship.
Somebody had to
30
lose.
teams didn't go at all.
And somebody had to lose.
Yeah, somebody had to lose. Dude, they still,
No, I mean, I felt like that during football this year. I mean, gosh, what an incredible football season that last half of the year. And yeah, I love sports because I really appreciate the work ethic that has to go in, especially in these days of playing football. It's absolutely astonishing.
Yeah, it is.
How much work it takes. But, I think about it more now. Maybe as I getting older, but when I think about what I've learned and how I learned it, I really didn't learn anything from our successes. I really learned more from screwing something up.
Yeah.
And getting it wrong, and then figuring out why I got it wrong, and then getting it better. I think when you have successes, that's nice and it's great, but you usually don't learn as much from those. It's just feedback that you already had that part down, right? But it's not enough. It's like you don't grow and learn from those successes. You learn from the losses.
A core part of the way you approach it versus the way I have approached it, and you've rubbed off on me, is I take failure a little too personal, and it starts to become blame on me, or which leads to blame on others.
Interesting, yeah.
And I've never seen you do that. I've seen you hire and fire a lot of people, and the whole time it was a very what's the right way to put it? Like there was never blame.
Right.
There was never blame. There was like, okay, this isn't working.
Right.
God has a better plan for you.
Yeah.
Because we have this system, and if you're not thriving in this system, then it was never like, you're an idiot. It was always like, then you weren't designed for the system.
Right.
But there's a system out there. There's probably multiple systems out there for you. This just isn't one of them.
Yep.
And I always admired that. And, it's one of those things where I can watch you and I can want to emulate you, but there's something in me that's like, hey, you're not thriving in this system because you're an idiot. Like I just get like, no. Or like, I must be an idiot. Yeah. Why? Because I hired you. Like that. I don't like that about myself, but I'm getting a little better with it. I know where you're going to take this, because you're going to say something positive about me, because the whole, like, it's literally, you're going to prove it right here in the moment where you're like, well, Joey.
Yeah. Well, I think you do a better job than you give yourself credit for.
See, there you go.
I think where you're coming from is love and compassion for people, and I admire it. I do. I think the way that I've kind of gotten clear on things is like, by me releasing somebody from our company, what I'm really doing is freeing them up to go find what God's got for them.
Yeah.
Right. There's another something out there for them that's better than what this was. So really all you're trying to do is find alignment. We all are being created by God. We all have very unique talents and gifts. And if you held them up and you look at them, you're trying to find alignment between those talents and gifts and what this opportunity is. And so, and especially when you're developing teams, you've got to find the characteristics that are natural core tenets in this person, the natural ones, not the modified ones that make people happy, the natural ones. And those natural tenets, do they fit that role? And if it does, then you've got a good alignment. What happens in interviews, what happens in selection, like when I was in my unit, I was talking about the Marines, is that you can only fake it for so long. You can only modify your natural style for so long before you wear out, or you start to fail yourself, and therefore you're failing the opportunity, right? Yes. People say they want something, and until they start doing it, and then once they start doing it, they're like, hold on, this isn't what I wanted. That's because you're out of alignment. Yeah. You're not actually in the right opportunity. So, I do the best I can to select people based on what I think their natural gifts are, with the least amount of modification to their style, right? Mm-hmm. And if that fits this, we'll hire them. Sometimes I'm wrong because they sold me better than I could see. Like, they gave me a better story than what was real, even though I encouraged them to tell me.
Or they wanted to be that person.
Yes, and I couldn't.
But that's not really their talent.
Right, and I couldn't catch it. I tried to catch it. I asked a million different questions to try to catch it, but they were good enough to, modify their style enough that it looked like it might be a good fit. And that's where the mistakes happen. And that's where, even when I was talking to that group of people you were thinking about earlier today, I was telling them, like, you gotta get really clear on what this role is and what the ideal person is for that role.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you'll always be in this problems. You're always going to be repeating the same problem.
Well, I think about Michael Jordan, who is arguably the greatest player the NBA's ever had, and arguably the worst player the MLB has ever had. You know, played professional basketball, won 3 championships, goes off to play professional baseball, and he was awful, and comes back to basketball and wins 3 more championships.
Yep.
And so if you only judged him by his baseball record,
Terrible.
and you didn't know that he played basketball,
Yeah.
this guy is the worst ever.
Jordan who?
Who? You mean the guy that batted 138? You know, like no, I'm talking about Michael Jordan, the guy who won 6 championships
That's right.
and scoring and this.
Perfect example.
And it's
Yeah.
like, you know, that's the same dude.
Yes.
Yeah. And so
Great dude, good fit, right? And it's right person, right seat. There's a lid for every can. There's a butt for every seat, right? You just got to find the right fit.
Becky, my wife's family has a rich history in car sales. Her uncle is Randy Denham, and her grandfather.
Yeah, he's
sold
wonderful.
Cars. Yeah, sold
known him a long
cars. And her grandfather, and she's got uncles, and it's just cars. It's just, you know, it's how the family. And her grandfather had a saying that there's a butt for every seat, because they would get a car. The joke was they got a car, and they're like, who would buy a lime green Mustang, you know?
Yeah.
And he'd be like, there is a butt for every. Somebody is out there shifting through. This is, gotta remember, pre-internet, shifting through the newspaper looking for a lime green Mustang, and they're like, I've been looking so long, you know.
Well, it might have been Mr. Denham that gave me that line. Maybe not the grandfather, but the son of the grandfather.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a possibility of that.
And that goes back to what you were saying, and what Caleb and I were talking before this conversation is, I said I thought the wrong question was asked of young people, like, what do you want to be? And like, how would you know? How would you know? Well, I want to be an astronaut. You know, like, how would you know what that's like? And so I said, I think it's more of like, what kind of life do you want to live?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of that conversation you had with your daughter, where you said, oh, okay, great. Sounds great. But, you know, what kind of home do you want to live?
Yeah.
We talked about things like, you know, if you pick a career that only exists in major cities, is like, do you want to live in a major city? Do you want to live like in an apartment in downtown and no parking, and you have to ride a bus or a subway or something? I mean, oh no, I hate that. I want to be out in nature. I'm like, okay. Do you want to be in a lab all day? Oh, no, I want to be, or do you want to be working with your hands? No, I'm much more of a virtual whiteboard guy, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The wrong questions are asked.
Yeah.
And so I think that goes back to that. And that goes back to, because I'm not going to let it go, that goes back to me saying that our system is flawed, and that we've been asking these kids, we've been selling them the wrong thing for too long, and ask them all the wrong questions, and then letting them take on the burden.
I would
and that
agree
is
with
the
that.
debt.
That is a good way to put that. I do agree.
And I think our education systems, I don't think that's what they are. I think they're financial. They're not educational institutions for the most part. Most of them are financial institutions. And so there's a lot of, I mean, when you dig into it, and I know this isn't reflective on some of the schools here, okay?
I was going to say, yeah, because I know the finances of university, at least local university, pretty intimately. I can tell you that's.
I'm talking more of the well, I'll just flat out and say it, Harvard.
Yeah.
Harvard's a great example.
Totally different.
That it is a hedge fund.
When you have endowments that are in the billions, that's a little different.
And you're sitting on hundreds of millions of dollars of capital.
Yeah.
And
They don't even have to charge tuition.
No, they don't.
So big,
they don't. You know, so it's they're making financial decisions. They're not educational decisions. And I think and I think we're seeing the backlash in America.
Yeah. Agreed.
But hey, we're just like when we talk real estate, we're not going to fix that. Now that we solved that one, you're welcome, America. You can sleep at night. Josh and I figured it out. We solved it. I love this area where we live. When I think about Reading and why I like it, number one, this is like my size town.
Me too.
I need to be able to drive to nature. Like, I can't be super far away.
Yep.
I grew up in Alaska. Snow is to be visited and then left. Like, you drive to Mount Shasta, you ski, then you get in your vehicle and you immediately leave the snow. So I love that. You know, my kids are like, I hope it snows. I'm like, and when it does, this is the right kind of snow.
Yeah.
It's gone within 24 hours usually. So I think this place is great. I think the beauty is great. When I think about Reading and what are some things that could make it better, I think that I'd like to see some industries come here simply to push up the average pay. And I don't even know what those are. I would like to see, because we are in the state of California, I would like to see a little bit less regulation. I'd like to see some more homes get built. I think it could have, other than that, I think this place is great. I think we have all your major amenities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I love it too. I mean, if you were to ask somebody, you know, well, maybe if you described what our community looks like, I would say, okay, well, I'm 15 minutes away from a lake that you can sail your boat on if you want to on a sailboat. I'm another 15 minutes away from a lake that you've got hundreds of miles of shoreline to explore, and literally it'll take you forever to get around the whole thing. I'm 45, 50 minutes from a mountain to ski on. I'm another like 45 minutes away from here to a volcano that looks just like if you were to go up to Yellowstone. I can go up into the mountains and hunt and fish. I've got a river that runs through the middle of my town that's probably got some of the most world-class trout fishing you're ever going to find. I'm a couple hours away from some of the most majestic ocean views you've ever seen. We're only less than a couple hours away from the world iconic redwoods. I'm only a couple hours away from, wine country and living the good life. And if I want to catch a Broadway show, I'm just a few hours away.
Yeah.
The good news is I live on an island, essentially, up about 2 hours away from craziness.
Yeah.
And I get to enjoy a population of about 145,000 people where I get to say that we live in a community. I go to friends down in LA and stuff. I love hanging out down there. I got buddies down there, and one of my buddies is the realtor for the Lakers and the Kings and stuff.
Yeah.
So when I go down, he'll show off, and we'll go do the whole, different shows and different sporting events and stuff. And I'm just blown away by it. But I'm like, I always tell him the same thing. I'm like, man, I tell you what, this is awesome. This is so much fun. I said, but this is not a community, just so you know. He's like, what do you mean? I'm like, you don't know anybody here. I mean, this is this big city.
They know
right?
you because you're famous.
Right.
You know what I mean? They're like, hey,
exactly.
But you don't know them.
You don't know them,
Yeah.
right? Where in Redding, I mean, this is real community. I enjoy walking down the street and shaking hands. How are you? How are the kids? How's the family? And you can't get anywhere in our town without having multiple wonderful conversations, right? And, if our existence on this planet, we're called just to love each other, what better place to do it than this community, right? So I don't know. I'm a huge fan.
Josh, thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah.
I appreciate you sharing your story and your positivity. And I'll probably see you in a couple weeks when we do the Josh Parker Real Estate Podcast.
That sounds good, buddy.
Thanks,
for
man. I
having me.
appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you too.